Hello, welcome. My name is Leah and this is my channel, Dirty Little Literate, where I like to talk about books that make me uncomfy, whether they are disturbing, gross, awkward, etc., what have you. And today I am doing my monthly reading wrap-up for the month of February. I hope you had a lovely February. I read 5 books this month, which admittedly is not the most impressive number. I won't even blame it on February being a short month. I will blame it on the fact that one of the books I was reading was one that I just felt like I could not hit it too hard. I had to pace myself just because it's a lot, and coming from me, it's not the type of a lot that I normally go for. You know, people can be getting decapitated left and right, and that's fine, I'll dive right in. But this one, you know, we'll talk about it. I will say I will not spoil any of these books for you. You're welcome. I always spoil them, so I'm not gonna. I'm holding back. And let's go ahead and get started with the first book. Tampa by Alissa Nutting. I made an in-depth video about this book, and this one feels quite porny, to be honest. Not corny, porny with a P, in the way that we don't like, in the way where the main character is a sexual predator. It is a woman who is an 8th grade teacher, and she has an intense desire for 14-year-old boys. 15 is too old. And the whole book basically details her sexual exploits of teenage boys. That's what this book is. And honestly, it's coming from her perspective, so it's very predatory. You feel dirty reading it. You get a lot more detail than you necessarily want about these sexual escapades, which are, you know, she's just assaulting people. She be assaulting people. The boys she's assaulting don't realize they're being assaulted, but you just get an intense level of understanding about the way that predators work and how calculating they are. She is so calculating. I did actually really like this book, and it's not because I'm a pervert, but there was some interesting comedy to it, not the assaults obviously, but the main character's inner dialogue, it has a weird humor to it, and the way she describes characters is kind of, I don't know, they're kind of gross in a fun way, in the not predatory way. They're just some gross people who aren't predatory. But I would say if the very basic description of a sex offender abusing children does not appeal to you, just skip it. There's, you know, don't torture yourself if you don't have to, if you don't like torturing yourself, okay? The second book I read, I have also done a video on, and that is Nightbitch, which is very exciting because a movie just came out about it. I already had it on my reading list before that, and Nightbitch is about a mom of a toddler who gave up her career in the art world in order to be a stay-at-home mom while her husband goes off to work and he's often traveling. So she sort of feels like she's living that single mom life. And this book is fascinating because a lot of the time you don't know if this is supposed to be a realistic book or if the main character is just losing it a little bit. And throughout the book, she is turning into a dog. She is growing hair, she's eating animals during the night, hunting them and catching them in her mouth. She starts teaching her son to act like a dog. They're eating out of dog bowls. She's doing a fairly good job of making it so that her husband does not really realize the extent of what is going on. But then she starts to be able to not fake being a normal human around other people, at which point she tries to repress her doggy urges. But the whole book is really a commentary on motherhood, the sacrifices that moms make, and how a lot of their natural desires and urges and their desire to just be individual people doesn't disappear just because they become a mom, and how do you balance your old identity and your identity as a mom. And I'm not gonna spoil anything for you. Is she a dog? Isn't she a dog? I don't know. Read the book. And it's not as disturbing as a lot of the books I talk about on here. There's some animal stuff in there that I don't love, but it is a book about a woman who's also part dog, so like animals are gonna be in it. But I suggest it. I don't really suggest the movie. You could watch it. I didn't like it that much. The next book that I am very excited to talk about, that I really had to pace myself with, is Four Treasures of the Sky by Jenny Tinghui. It's Tinghui. I might be saying that wrong. I'm sorry. But shout out to my girl Joe's Journey. She is a fellow booktuber. Go check her out. She is the one who recommended this book to me. In a way, I guess, are you recommending a book if it's the one that most destroyed you? Because that is how this was sold to me, is the book that destroyed her the most. And not destroyed her in a way of like, oh, I'm just strictly so disturbed, but my understanding is that it destroyed her emotionally. This one digs around in your emotions, and it certainly does not have a happy ending, but this one is definitely different from the type of book that I normally go for. This is historical fiction. It takes place in the 1800s, which I really don't be reading anything in that time period. And I often also realize that even though a lot of the books that I read will destroy people in the book physically, they're not as emotionally destructive as this one could be considered, because, you know, if you're a sexual predator preying on kids, you're like devoid of empathy. There's not a lot of emotion there. And if you're turning into a dog, you know, I don't know your doggy emotions, but this one is. So when I looked it up, it's not necessarily that this is fully based on a true story, but I think it's like inspired by events that were happening. And it begins in China with this young girl, Dayu, who's living with her parents. One day she comes home and her parents are gone, and there's some men there who are trying to figure out where her parents have run off to. Her grandma is there, and her grandma is very worried for her safety. It seems like these people are going after her parents, and she sends Dayu to a town where she doesn't know anyone because she just wants to protect her, and she makes her change her identity. She starts dressing like a boy and changes her name. She ends up finding an opportunity to help out at this calligraphy school, and this is something that she's actually really excited about. And she's usually very, very hungry. She's given a little bit of food here, but eventually she is kidnapped and she is taken on a ship to the US. It's really awful. They bury her in all this coal in like a box on the ship for like, I think like 2 weeks. She's just in this coal. They'll like open it, pour something in her mouth, shove it back. Like she's just, you know, going to the bathroom on herself. She's not allowed to stretch her legs, nothing. It sounds excruciating, but she is brought to the United States, and now she is living back as a female, and she is forced to work in a brothel. One thing that was kind of crazy though about this book is she never actually ended up having to sleep with anyone while she worked at the brothel. It was like they were getting her ready for the clients, and then it just, you know, situations change, and then she's not in the brothel, but you never slept with anyone. I don't know. That part of it seemed a little suspect to me given how long she was there, but they had to like fatten her up. They taught her English. Anyway, after she escapes this brothel, which I don't know, is that a spoiler? I feel like it happened still in the first chunk of the book. That's kind of the theme throughout this book, is she goes from one bad situation to another, to another, to another. And a lot of the book she does end up, you know, trying to present as a man, because to her that becomes safer. And there are just a lot of undesirable characters in this book who don't treat her or women well. And what was really interesting to me is when she is in America, this is like the first time she's encountering racism. And so she honestly is like confused at first. Like she really doesn't get it. And it's crazy to have a book that, you know, is taking place so long ago, but like also racism is like a novel. Like, what is this for the character? That was kind of crazy to read about. And I will say there is like a little kind of romance angle where like she falls in love with this guy, but he doesn't know she's a woman, and that's just kind of like a whole side plot we got going. But I will say this is a very unfortunate ending that this book has. And now, Joe, I will tell you, the reason this book did not totally destroy me is because, like, you sold it as it was going to destroy me. So I went in very prepared. I didn't expect a happy ending. And I think if I had expected things to work out in the end, I would have felt robbed. And this is the one where I felt like I had to pace myself, because even though I read a lot of like disturbing stuff, it's just bleak. It was just bleak. You're just like, okay, this other bleak thing. But also another reason it didn't fully destroy me is there are some redeemable characters in this book. A lot of the books that I read that are bleak that really get me are the ones where there are no redeemable characters. But luckily there are a few in this book. So if like historical fiction is more your vibe and you like books that are less trashy than the ones that I often recommend, you could give this one a try. As you may note, I have not held up a copy of any of these books because so far all the ones that I have mentioned I got from the library, except for this next one, Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. And that's because I buy all of Paul Tremblay's books, because I feel like I'm guaranteed to like them, or at least have an experience that feels novel to me. And Horror Movie, I really liked this one. I am going to be making an in-depth one where I will be happy to spoil all of it for you. So the premise of this book is there are these young adults who are filming a horror movie, and they're filming it in kind of a unique way. They're filming it where some of the characters in it don't actually know what is going to happen throughout the movie. Like, they only get to read their lines or their scenes the night before each day of filming. So they want it to be just as fresh for the actors as it would be for the characters. And the way that this book is written at first confused me just a little bit. I will say, I feel like this is how Paul Tremblay wrote the last book that I read of his, The Pallbearers Club, where it jumps back and forth between timelines of like then and now and then and now. But what really confused me is like, sometimes we're in present day now, but he's still talking about then, now. So like, it's just kind of jumping a little bit all over the place. But this one, the reason I really liked it is because the whole time it is being alluded to that something very, very bad happened during the filming of this horror movie. And we know that something happened to one of the people in the movie, but like, we don't know what it is. And it's interesting because they'll allude to a trial that happened as a result of the thing that happened on this movie set, but then we get the sense that like none of the characters went to prison or anything. So you're just so curious as to what it is. And I definitely think that when I was told, I was like, ooh, yeah, I would not have predicted that one. And like, I was given what I was like craving, like, oh, okay, that surprised me. I will say that even though this is called Horror Movie, this is not like a constantly disturbing book. There's definitely pieces of it, but I feel like if you like thriller stuff, it's not like this is gonna be like way too hardcore horror for you, or maybe it is. I feel like maybe I'm so blind and desensitized to what like other people do or don't find disturbing. I'm not sure. But I will say, to give you a little taste of what the horror movie itself is supposed to be about, the one that they're filming, it's these kids who are in high school, and it's like a group of friends, and they go to this abandoned schoolhouse. And once they go to the schoolhouse, they have one of the kids in the friend group put on this mask. And they make him like undress to his underwear, and they start like throwing like rocks and glass and shit at him. And then they make him stay in this closet in this abandoned schoolhouse overnight. And they make him do this like every night, and they basically torture him, and it gets progressively worse and worse. But it was so weird because he initially seemed like their friend. And so through the movie, you're trying to figure out like, why are they doing this? And the other weird part is he's letting them. Like, it's clear that he is allowing them to do this. Yeah, I don't know. But what I really liked, so you are reading some of this as the screenplay was written. So you are seeing the comments written by the person who wrote the screenplay. And so rather than the experience you get when you're just watching a movie, you're getting what that person who wrote the screenplay wants you to get out of it. And I feel like that made it a lot more meaningful. Like, I could have watched whatever this movie was supposed to be and I would have been like, I'm intrigued. But I got a lot more out of the commentary from the screenwriter. And the whole book is told from the perspective of one of the people who was in the movie. And I will say, Paul Tremblay's characters always have such low self-esteem. And it's, I don't know, I think gotta be telling about the author. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I love a good low self-esteem having character. Don't ask me why. I will say, it was mostly the very end that's like, oof, okay, this is a horror movie. But other than that, like, I don't think it was like super unpalatable. I don't know. Don't even ask me anymore. I don't even know. And finally, the last book of the month, Penpal by Nathan Auerbach? Yeah. So I am like not done with this book yet. I'm almost done with this book, and I'm sure I'll probably finish it in a day. It's quite good. I really like it. Penpal. So the premise of this book, this is also told in kind of a weird fashion where it's the present day main character recalling events to you from his childhood, beginning when he's like 6, and he's telling you, I'm going to give you the information from these events as I experienced them when I was young. And you're going to find out all this information that makes these events seem totally different, kind of in the way that he found it out when he was older. And I will say, one complaint that I have about this book is I realize that it's like an adult that's supposed to be relaying all of this now, but the amount of detail he has in the memories of when he was 6 and the way he recalls his existence as a 6-year-old just does not give 6-year-old to me at all. I didn't feel like the child character was super on par with like what a real kid is like, but that could just be me. I also feel like the order of everything was kind of wonky. Like the way he would tell the story is like, you said you were telling it in the order like it happened like to you, and yet you're jumping from like 6 to like 5th grade but then back to 6. So it's weird. I really, really like this book, and I don't know why I wanted to voice all of my complaints to you first. And another complaint, sometimes I just feel like he'd be spending a long time like describing stuff. I'm like, we did not need this much detail about this specific situation. Like, it's not that necessary. But okay, let me get to the part where I really like this book. I feel like I should have led with the part where I like this book. I don't know. So this is about a young boy who in kindergarten is assigned a project, a pen pal project, where the kids are supposed to write a letter, put it in an envelope, attach it to a balloon, send it off into the sky, and ideally someone will find it, write a letter back, and include a picture of a location around the town. And the idea is that the children will then have a bunch of photos of the town. You kind of like make a map of it, whatever. This definitely is not this day and age, because can you imagine asking kindergartners to like write letters to strangers, encouraging these strangers to write back or send photos back? And I get that it's like supposed to be that the teachers are looking at it first, but this would not happen now. This would not happen now. So eventually our main character is very overjoyed because he does get a letter back, or so he thinks. And it is quite a delay, and there is no letter. there is just a photo, and we cannot tell what the photo is of. It's like very unclear. It's like, why would this person send this photo? And then we get another photo and another photo. This person is sending so many photos during the school year. I think they send like 50 photos. And after the first multiple, it's like none of these photos are of like anything like particularly identifiable. There's a lot of them are blurry. It's kind of weird. So after a while, he starts just putting the envelopes in a drawer and he doesn't even open them. Now, we have various scenes that are supposed to be told like, oh, you're a 6-year-old and so you just didn't know what's going on. But for us, it's very obvious that any details that are mentioned in the book, like, we're reading into them like, oh no, that's probably this. But basically you get the sense that this pen pal person is stalking this boy. One day he does open up some of the other envelopes and he starts realizing that all of these photos, he didn't realize it at first. I don't really know how he didn't realize, but there's like tiny pictures of him. Like, these were pictures taken of him super far away, so it's like hard to tell, but this person has been stalking him, taking photos of him. There's other things that happen throughout the book that suggest that this person is all up in his life. And this is terrifying. He's 6 years old. And honestly, this book actually spooks me because I haven't read the end yet, and it just seems like so far it's getting progressively scarier in terms of like how involved this person is getting, and like not knowing who it is and not even having like a clear-cut concept of like, I don't know what they're all about. I don't know. It just like, it seems like it's just getting progressively creepier, and I don't normally really get that scared by my books, and this one, like, it spooks me. Like, when I'm reading it before bed, I feel a little spooked, and I'm so motivated to see how it all unfolds. So yeah, it's a really weird book because normally I don't have a lot of complaints about the books that I read. If they're like kind of scary or keep me turning the pages, then normally I don't have complaints. And there's just a few different things about the way the author writes that like bugged me a little bit. But when I'm not reading this book, I look forward to reading this book. So I would recommend it, and we'll see how it ends. I don't know. I'll probably do a video on this one. Maybe. We'll see. But that is it. That's my 5 books because I only read 5 books. Thank you so much for joining me. Shout out again to Joe's Journey. Go check out her channel. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you next time. Bye.